Let's get scratching.
Here we are at the end of another year. A bad year. A sad year. Constant struggles in my personal and professional life have left me with a steady stream of grief and stress, sometimes pushing me to the absolute brink. Look, I'm not going to get into it, but I could barely take care of myself and my family this year. Don't even try to talk to me about the wider world, alright? But you know what has continued to be a light shining through all that darkness? Video games. Video games have always been one of the few things that can take me right back to happier, less stressful days. It doesn't matter if I'm getting killed by the same boss 10 times in a row. Simply engaging in this hobby just deeply relaxes me. I started my YouTube journey in 2024 with the goal of posting just one video every single month. And I'm happy to report that I've accomplished just that. More of you than I ever expected showed up to give me a chance, and I thank every single one of you. Even those of you who hate-clicked the Silent Hill 2 review, I really loved that. Everyone really loved when you did that. 2025 is hopefully going to bring about a more grounded and peaceful personal life, and a more stable professional life. I'm manifesting it, so I think that means it has to happen now. The new year also means 12 brand new videos for the channel. One a month, just like always. Consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my spicy gaming takes throughout the year. And speaking of spicy gaming takes, this video is going to be my top 10 games of the year. Now, only a single rule goes into this list. I had to beat the game in 2024. So this isn't going to be your typical list where all the hot 2024 releases are ranked or whatever. It's much more personal. I played a ton of stuff this year, spanning many generations of video games. Some of the picks might surprise you, even though admittedly, my game of the year pick probably won't. It's also worth mentioning that a game being lower on this list doesn't mean it's a bad game at all. Everything here was amazing to me, so honestly, don't put too much stock into any of the numbers. They're made up, and they don't matter. And so the stage is set. Let's get started. Sonic the Hedgehog is a game I have talked at length about on this channel already, and it probably won't be the last time either. I'll spare you all the details. You can watch that video after this one if you want, but Sonic 1 makes this list for one reason. If my gaming preferences have gradually shifted towards favoring exceptional gameplay experiences over more story-driven ones, then Sonic the Hedgehog 1 reconnected with me at just the right moment during that transition. Even though I've played this game for my entire life, this year was when I think I came to fully appreciate and understand it in a way that I just never have before. It was my goal to try to get a few other people to understand it better, and I can safely say I've done that. Say it with me, kids. Sonic the Hedgehog is perfect. I won't be surprised if this game appears again on future year-end lists, because I'm never going to stop playing it. Let's be real. It's only number 10 so that all these other games have a chance at all. I'm a big fan of Vanillaware games, my favorites being Dragon's Crown, a really awesome 2D action RPG, and Muramasa the Demon Blade, a Metroidvania where you collect different swords with different skills attached to them. That's a game that kind of lives rent-free in my head, and I'm still waiting patiently for the sequel. Muramasa is beautiful, and its action combat is still really fresh, if a bit simple. Now, every once in a while, a game will come along that seems to be trying to capture that Vanillaware magic, and that's exactly what Sword of the Vagrant does. This game is really incredible. The only real gripes I had with it were some areas of its presentation, like the extremely dry UI menu. I mean, stuff like that really stands out when you compare it to how gorgeous the characters in the world are. The music was also a highlight for me. You've got light RPG elements and a skill tree with just enough going on to let you build your character in a specific way, but this is the kind of game where your ability will take you further than your stats. The story is a pretty small, personal affair with only a few characters involved. It's the action combat that shines here, and it puts up a good challenge too. There are even a few unlockable difficulty modes and ultimate gear to chase after if you get the itch. Sword of the Vagrant was one of my bigger surprises of the year, and it comes highly recommended. Before Rebirth dropped, I thought it was easily going to be the best game I played this year. I thought that there was no way I would have a gaming experience that excited me more than this one. I successfully avoided Square's belligerent fucking marketing campaign that was hell-bent on spoiling everything the game had to offer, dove in on day one, and I played and played and played. Over 160 hours later, the second chapter of Final Fantasy VII's story came to a close. But what did I think? Was there any doubt? I loved it. Mechanically, it's just so much deeper than Remake. You've got an expanded list of party members, new materia, and those cool as hell synergy attacks. Those do so much for the combat system and are yet another resource to manage during the heat of battle. They're also great because it lets the characters shine just that much more. This is a very character-focused game, and it does not disappoint in that area. Enemy and boss design is fantastic. They do a great job giving every enemy some kind of weakness or gimmick so that they all get to be distinct. Even though the game is an action RPG, it's very stat dependent, and the build variety is through the roof. I mean, it's everything I wanted to see. I've heard plenty of other people complain about the amount of content in this game and how big the areas are, and to those people I would say, you know, you don't have to do every single piece of content in a game, right? I mean, I did, but it was fun for me the entire fucking time. Trust me, if I had felt like it was starting to drag, I'd just go do something else in the game or play a different game entirely. When I first got to Cosmo Canyon, yeah, it was time for a break. Now, if you haven't played this yet and you heard people complaining about this, and it maybe put you off the game, just know that nothing is actually missable in this game. You can save all the side quests and optional things for the very, very end of the game if you really want to. So don't burn yourself out, man. Gamers be weird about that shit sometimes. All that aside, this game is a triumph, and the developers should be insanely proud of the work they've done here. The love and care with which this world and characters were recreated is fucking admirable, and the game is loaded with worthwhile content. I still need to get back in there and finish hard mode and those post-game battles, but even separate from that, I still have character builds that I want to try out. I know I have this game pretty low on this list, but that says nothing of its overall quality. This game dropped really early into the year, and as the year went on, I just had certain games resonate with me even more than this one. What could resonate with me more than an incredibly faithful remake of one of my favorite RPGs of all time? Okay, don't laugh. I played Unbound through EA's subscription service, EA Play. I originally picked it up for a month just to play the Dead Space remake. Spoiler alert, the Dead Space remake is not on this list. After finishing Dead Space, Need for Speed caught my eye because of that cool art style, and I was all in from the start. Now, I haven't played a racing game in quite some time. That genre kind of peaked for me back in the early 2000s with games like Need for Speed Underground and the Burnout series. More arcade-style racing experiences that weren't all wrapped up in the prestige of something like Gran Turismo. I think I was just missing a gaming experience like those Burnout and Underground games that I grew up on. And man, Unbound delivered in pretty much every way. To my surprise, it was actually developed by Criterion, those old Burnout developers. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but this game is basically Need for Speed Underground 3. And it's just fucking fun. Racing through city streets and then suddenly being chased by the cops never got old. These cops give zero fucks. They're operating on that Grand Theft Auto cop logic. Hell, maybe that Jet Grind Radio cop logic. Damn. I really enjoyed the heat system where as you complete more races and events each night, you'll earn more and more cash, but also more cops will patrol the streets. So if you're a good enough player, you can avoid them, but if you push your luck and get caught, you'll lose all the money you earned that night, halting your story progression. It's a really cool system, and I hope it comes back in a sequel. The story and voice acting especially was nothing fantastic, especially from our boy A$AP Rocky. Look, don't do the mission where he asks you for a ride unless you've got like 20 minutes to sit and listen to his fucking life story. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was very hilarious, but it sounded like they just sort of clipped a interview that he was in and threw it in the game. That, like, does anybody know what was up with that? Why did they do that? And then why did they repeat it in the credits? The credits to this game are like 30 minutes long.
Whose music is changing nowadays, and it's more appealing to the algorithm of TikTok. So will it grasp your attention in the first 15 seconds, or would you swipe past it? Will it do this? Will it?
But anywho, don't sleep on this one. I don't really play a lot of racing games, like I said, but I'm glad I played this one. Sometimes it pays to step outside of your comfort zone. Mario Odyssey is a game I'd been putting off for years. I'm talking way back, like before my son was even born. He's almost 4 now and actually really likes Mario. I mean, he really, really likes Mario. So now seemed to be the perfect time for me to finally boot up Mario's latest 3D adventure. Real talk, this game is a masterpiece. It's so goddamn huge. I'm really not surprised that Nintendo hasn't followed it up with anything yet. I mean, maybe they're saving it for the Switch 2 launch, but I mean, I don't blame them one bit. I really like the approach they took here. Huge areas that are very densely packed with many challenges, more than a player needs just to beat the game. There's something like 800 moons to collect in this game, and it's kind of overkill in regards to game design, but this is Mario we're talking about here, so I can understand why they wouldn't want to compromise. A Mario game that compromises is almost certainly always ass. Odyssey also feels like the first time in a long time Nintendo really celebrated Mario. That's part of why I enjoyed it so much. Jump Up Superstar is an amazing song, sure, but in-game, it's an absolutely perfect moment. Crazy that it's completely optional, too. They made all that, and a player could never even talk to Pauline and experience it. As y'all know, I've been upset with the plumber's more recent efforts, but this game reminded me of his potential, reminded me why he's the top dog. Like everyone else, I can't wait to see where Mario goes next. The best thing that I can say about Uncharted 4 is that it is batshit insane. See, this is a perfect example of the strength of this medium. This is what more games need to strive for, a marriage of gameplay systems and story beats. Uncharted 4 presents one of the best stories in video games, but it doesn't ever forget that it is a video game. It's a perfectly paced action adventure with super tight mechanics, and can we talk about this grappling hook? Brilliant decision. Expertly implemented. It's so goddamn fun to use. I also played through The Lost Legacy, and that expansion was just as batshit crazy as the main game. It's great seeing Chloe again from Uncharted 2, and she gets her own wild adventure in a completely different part of the world. This whole package was amazing, and if I never see another Uncharted game again, I wouldn't even be mad. This game is a love letter to that series and a perfect send-off. More developers need to realize that you can use video games to tell the stories that you want and have them be pioneers of their genre as well. We don't have to choose just one or the other. Do I really have Remake on the same 2024 year-end list as its sequel, Rebirth? Why, yes. Yes, I do. I did originally play Remake in 2020 when it released, but just once. I loved it, but for whatever reason, I was saving all of that game's extra challenges and content for a later time. It's similar to what happened with Rebirth after I finished it, now that I'm thinking about it. Fast forward to 2024, and I'm waiting patiently for Rebirth to drop, expectations running high as ever. I decided to go back to Remake and tackle everything I left undone. Hard mode, the Yuffie DLC, and the VR post-game battles. I ended up playing through this game 3 times this year, back to back to back. Why 3 times? Was I chasing a certain trophy or something like that? Was there some item I missed or something? No, it's simply because the game is fucking fun, that's why. Remake has this air about it that I find really hard to explain. This just feels like a culmination of everything Final Fantasy has been trying to do since Advent Children. This battle system is perfect. And even though we only have 4 party members, they all have so much depth to them. Even though there isn't much materia, there is just enough complexity to make the game compelling to play over and over again. The shorter length definitely helps with that as well. I mean, I can play Remake like 3 times through in the time that it would take me to play Rebirth once. I'm not saying Rebirth should be shorter. I'm not one of those folks who felt it was too long or bloated or whatever, but I can't lie and say I don't usually prefer shorter gaming experiences that I can play over and over again. If Remake is the foundation on which Rebirth is built, I'm arguing that it is a perfect foundation. They came out the gate swinging with this. You can feel how important they knew this project was going to be. Even if the rest of the Remake trilogy were to not be so great, I have always felt like this game, this first part, is so amazing that really doesn't even matter. That whole Midgar arc stands perfectly fine on its own, and it's truly a blast to play through. Will Part 3 be able to top this? I'm really not sure. But I'm very excited to see what new gameplay additions Square cooks up for the big finale. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I originally played this in 2020, and I replayed it and The Last of Us 1 on PS5 this year. My list only has room for bangers, and this right here, you see this right here? This is another perfect fucking video game. 2024 is loaded! Look, I don't care if you hate the story, I don't care if you hate the characters or the decisions that some of them may have made, but if you stand there in front of me and try to tell me that this isn't one of the best third-person stealth games ever made, I will debate you respectfully down below in the comments section like an adult. The biggest crime of the gaming industry is the fact this game will never be recognized as such. It's one of those games. You know what I mean, one of those critical darling narrative games. It's kind of like Silent Hill 2, where all most people really are here for is the story. And you know what? I think that sucks. Naughty Dog didn't make a movie or an HBO TV drama. They made a fucking video game. And this video game fucking rocks. They had no business giving us this meaty-ass game, complete with 2 different characters who actually feel different to play as. Ellie is centered a lot more around stealth, while Abby is all about punching throats and breaking necks. Your exploration is rewarded with more lore, more supplies, and even new skill trees for your characters. The combat is next level, and the moment-to-moment gameplay is some of the best you're ever gonna come across. I checked out the making of video they included here, and it actually made me love the game even more. I dig peeks behind the curtain, and seeing just a bit of the care that went into this project was really amazing. Every game should have a making of featurette, for fuck's sakes. Like, I want to know more about how this stuff comes together. It's so fascinating. The Last of Us 2 sits firmly in my top 3 games I completed this year, even with me replaying the first game right before it. It's the total package, from the story to the gameplay to the music. It is flawless. If Intergalactic has a quarter of a half of the quality of The Last of Us 2, then we are all in for a treat. I have played this game pretty much every single goddamn day since it released. I'm not just talking about doing my dailies either. I will sit in these menus and get all wrapped up in reading character skills and abilities, trying to optimize my builds as best I can. This game has one of the absolute best action RPG combat systems I have ever played. Surprising even myself, I have put just as much time into this game as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. The combat in both games is actually pretty similar, at least on paper. So if you're a fan of Rebirth and haven't tried this yet, I think you'd enjoy it. Now, depending on my mood, it's a toss-up on what combat system I prefer. Factoring in that Zenless Zone Zero is a free-to-play game that you can even play on your phone, it's crazy I can even say that. Every character in ZZZ has more depth than you first think, and the team dynamics are very strong. You'll be throwing out all kinds of crazy damage in no time and looking cool as hell while you do it. I mean, just look at this gameplay. What the hell is even going on? This game got an old man gamer like me with his old cynical gamer heart to acknowledge and even appreciate how much video games have changed and will continue to change. I know I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I was really struggling with how I could responsibly support a video game like this. I'm old school, so I'm used to just paying for a game outright and then enjoying that game for the rest of your life. But not only will ZZZ's content probably not be around forever, I'm not even guaranteed to experience it all in the time that I have. There's also the feeling of being a total freeloader who's played the game for hundreds of hours and not spent a dime. What I would love to see in a game like this is something like a buy option, where you can just buy the game for a set price of $60 or $70, and there's a selection of content you're guaranteed to from that purchase, with anything else that you get just being a bonus. That's not really how gacha games work these days, but most do offer some sort of monthly subscription, and 12 months of that usually shakes out to the price of a regular game anyway. Well worth it in my opinion. I mean, just to support these developers. I know the whales are the ones who really make all this fucking polish possible, and that's probably not good, but I've played games this year that were way worse that cost just as much. I think supporting what you like is generally always worth it as long as you're responsible about it, and only you can know for sure if you are, you know what I mean? With its amazing music, visuals, and combat, Zenless Zone Zero is a game I see myself sticking with for the long haul. Even when I was still a free-to-play player, I was lucky enough to pull Jane, Yanagi, Bernice, and Miyabi. So I'm eating good right now. This game and the community around it has just been so much fun. The only bad thing I could really say about the game so far has already been addressed, and that's the TV mode gameplay. Luckily, now I don't really have to do it at all. Hell, I don't even know if it's still in the game at this point. I feel like this game has changed so much since launch and only gotten better and better with each major update. The TV mode was a big miss, and I'm glad that the team was willing to listen to feedback that players thought that it was just not fun to play. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's largely optional outside of a few small instances, which frees me up to do more of what I care about. Actually fighting with my chosen character. They also open things up to let us walk around the city as different characters, a neat option, but one that just feels a little too weird for me to take advantage of. I mean, I gotta be the proxy. She's the one I came with. MiHoYo has been great about player feedback so far, and I'm really excited to see what degenerate S-rank characters they dish out in future updates. I fucking love Zenless Zone Zero, but if you'll remember, Nikke was the mobile game that set me on the path in the first place. No Nikke on my list then? No worries. It's not like Nikke dropped the ball or anything like that. I still play that damn near every day. I mean, they're giving us SSR Rappy for the new year. Finally, the best girl gets some love. Just let her be happy. Damn. Nikke is doing great. It's just that Shift Up, the developers, made something even better this year. Stellar Blade is a game that so many people are not going to play. That used to bother me a lot. Come to realize that's totally fine, because Stellar Blade feels like a game made just for me. It's the kind of game I'd create if I had full creative control and an unlimited budget. Like Sonic, this game already has a full review on the channel, and it's the review that kicked off this whole YouTube thing back in April. I'll be straight with you. Stellar Blade is my game of the year, and it's not even close. I've been eagerly anticipating this game for years, and it didn't just meet my expectations, it exceeded my expectations. Stellar Blade can proudly stand alongside the best of the best in the action genre. and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. This game is so much more than the sum of its parts. It's a rare example of a team of passionate creators refusing to compromise on the art that they wanted to make. It's an incredibly polished action game that always remembers what is most important, and that's that video games are supposed to be fun. Remember when they were fun? Remember the fun? Taking on tough bosses is fun. Exploring cool areas is fun. Unlocking outfits is fun, and seeing insanely cool shit unfold right before your eyes is always a good fucking time. I know I barely touched on it in the review, but its story is not just Nier Automata at home. I'd argue that's what it wants you to think at the beginning, but if you actually play through it yourself, you'll see that that's just not the case. Stellar Blade actually tells its larger story much more like a From Software game. So if you're not reading everything and paying attention to all the environmental storytelling, you'll come out of the experience thinking, oh, so they just did the Nier thing. The story told here, I think it's just as good as Nier's, with just as much to say, different things to say. I love it dearly because I cared enough to try and understand it. Probably due to their experience with mobile games, Shift Up has supported Stellar Blade throughout 2024 with consistent updates. We got new costumes and accessories throughout the year just for fucking because, a boss challenge mode shortly after launch, and both a summer and a Christmas event, all for free. They even added a selfie camera and a full-on photo mode. Everything was capped off with a fantastic Nier collaboration, complete with themed costumes and accessories. It's the only piece of paid DLC the game has, and in 2024, that's genuinely impressive, especially considering this is the first AAA title Shift Up has ever made. Even without all those updates though, the game is absolutely loaded. That includes the awesome New Game Plus that actually unlocks exclusive outfit variants and gear, very similar to how New Game Plus in a Souls game will give you like a +1 or a +2 ring or something like that. The game isn't too long on a first playthrough, and I can finish it in like 6 or 7 hours on a New Game Plus cycle, so it's just been really easy to slip into this game for a few nights and experience the whole thing again. Short games, man, they just might be better, I don't know. Now, more may be happening with Stellar Blade next year. The long-awaited collab with Nikke is set to release, and I'm hoping that means Stellar Blade will get a few Nikke costumes thrown in as well. Considering both games are Shift Up's property, I've got high expectations. I could keep rambling about everything I love about this game, but I'll leave it here. Stellar Blade was the most fun I had in 2024, plain and simple. I've beaten this game close to 7 times, and I just dove in again to try to finish up the boss challenge and enjoy the Nier collaboration. Like I said at the start, many people are going to turn their noses up at this game and even this entire list, but hey, that's alright, because it's mine. How was your 2024, fellow gamers? What were your personal picks for the year? Do you share any of mine? Let me know, and I'm always looking for recommendations on cool games to play. As always, I make one new video every month, so until next time, may your memories live on.